welcome to Minnesota Homeownership Center's Welcome Home podcast. My name is Bill Gray, and today we are sitting down with representatives from the GroundBreak Coalition here in the Twin Cities. Joining me are Erin Gavin, Acting Project Director for GroundBreak and Director of Strategic Initiatives for the McKnight Foundation. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you.
And also joining us, Marcus Owens, a member of the GroundBreak implementation team and a principal at Nawe Partners. Welcome, Marcus.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you guys are here. So, Erin, let's start with you. I myself have heard things here and there about GroundBreak because we're working closely with you on at least one specific project, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But why don't you give us a quick feel for the entirety of the coalition's work? What is the GroundBreak Coalition? Why was it created, and what is it working to accomplish?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having us. I think at its heart, you can think of GroundBreak as an effort to make investments in people and their aspirations to make our region stronger for all of us. Coalition members are coming together to rewrite the rules of financial systems to make it possible for more people to realize their aspirations. And GroundBreak really seeks to benefit the entire Minneapolis-St. Paul region, but we're orienting our initial work and investments toward building Black wealth because we know that there is enormous and untapped wealth building potential in this community that has been locked out of opportunity by systemic racism. So, for example, we see the history of redlining in the lending discrimination that exists today, with places like the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis finding as recently as 2022 that Black aspiring homeowners in Minneapolis-St. Paul are 3 times more likely to be denied mortgages, even when we take into account credit scores and other applicant characteristics. And so this is why our work with coalition members like the Homeownership Center and others are so critical to advancing scalable and resilient systems changes. Because basically what GroundBreak is trying to do is get more and more flexible capital and resources into the hands of Black wealth builders by investing in aspiring homeowners, entrepreneurs, and commercial-oriented community developers. So how did we get here? GroundBreak launched 3 years ago with really a big vision. And we gathered hundreds of people at the Sabathani Community Center in Minneapolis. And we basically said, will you join us in this effort to create the community that all of us want for ourselves, for our children and our grandchildren? And then from there, I think of the GroundBreak story as really happening in 3 chapters: ideation, infrastructure, and implementation. So we started in the ideation phase. We had that big gathering at Sabathani. We were humbled by the number of people that raised their hands to partner with us. And we spent about 6 months gathering 170 community members from across sectors. So we had entrepreneurs and developers themselves. We had bankers, we had philanthropic leaders, we had government leaders, we had community-based organizations like HOC, which played a leadership role in that work. And we engaged in a user-centered design process to say, what would it take to make financial systems work for all of us in this community? After that 6 months or so of ideation, we tested the ideas. We brought together more aspiring homeowners, entrepreneurs, commercial developers, and said, would these products work for you? We also talked to investors. We spent time with bankers, corporations, the public sector, philanthropy, and said, would you invest in these solutions?
Okay.
And ultimately, the answer to the question of, if we build it, will you come, was yes. And so we were able to announce a $1 billion down payment on the goals of GroundBreak. And ultimately, over the course of 10 years, we anticipate deploying $5 billion to support, again, homeowners, entrepreneurs, et cetera.
And you're saying billions with a B.
I'm saying billions with a B.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Because part of what we also knew was that so often, Minnesota has a tremendous civic infrastructure, right, that we're all lucky to benefit from. And we've made incredible investments in our community, but often the reality is that the scale of the investments, even the multi-million-dollar investments that, say, a philanthropic partner might show up with, is just simply not commensurate to the scale of the need. And so part of what GroundBreak is trying to do is also say, how do we take different forms of capital, like a grant or a loan with a lower interest rate, and how do we blend them so that we can get more market rate capital into the region, because it really is the scale of sort of private sector investment that is the only,
you got to make it work.
The only type of capital that can really get to the scale that we require. And so we're trying to figure out how we develop innovative partnerships to make sure that we're not leaving anything on the table and we're able to generate more of that private sector investment. And then the next chapter of the GroundBreak work really goes, we went from ideation to infrastructure. And that's where Marcus and others and HOC have continued to play really important roles, which is that we spent most of 2024 actually building the stuff that it's going to take to get these resources out the door to wealth builders. So we built funds and we found, expert financial managers, and we identified community-based organizations and leaders who can partner with wealth builders to make sure that we get capital into their hands. And as we move into 2025, we're writing the next chapter, which is implementation. And so as we look into the next couple of months, we're at a point where we are going to not just continue to make investments in homeownership, which I know Marcus is going to speak to, but really start to see dollars and resources flowing across all three of GroundBreak's impact areas, which are homeownership, entrepreneurship, and commercial real estate, to realize this promise that we've made to our community, and again, a vision of a future where everybody thrives.
It's so exciting. Such a great summary. So I have a couple questions. So, I mean, it sounds to me like you're saying GroundBreak is scaling to make a difference. It's like, step up with enough resources to actually make an impact. And we've done all sorts of things in the past, but they've never been at a scale that they can really maybe change the systems. That's what I'm hearing about this. And you're looking for solutions. Who's leading GroundBreak?
GroundBreak is at its heart a coalition. And so we are led by a leader. We call ourselves a leaderful team. There's obviously a group of people who are powering the day-to-day work. I'm so excited Marcus is here with me because he's a huge part of that, alongside many other community partners. We're linking arms with our nonprofit partners like Homeownership Center and Habitat for Humanity and the network of organizations that you partner with. And then we're led by an executive council that includes representatives from leading financial institutions like Huntington Bank, philanthropic partners like McKnight Foundation, Bush Foundation, state agencies. Commissioner Ho is an ex officio member on our executive council. And so I hope that what that gives you is a flavor of just the breadth and depth of folks who are powering the coalition's work.
No, it's very impressive. And it sounds like, actually this might work. At least that's what it sounds like to me. And is it true GroundBreak Coalition is here? It's not a nationwide thing. It's not, at least not yet. True to say that?
Absolutely. We are anchored and committed to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and we believe that the work we do can provide a model for communities across the state and the country. I would second that, and I know that's one of the things we're working with the homeownership stuff we're working on. All right, well, that is super helpful. Thank you for that overview, Erin. Appreciate it. And so now let's turn to our specific work together, Homeownership Center and GroundBreak, preparing to launch what's called the Advancing Black Homeownership Community Fund pilot. This is a super innovative program, but let me set the table first. You did a little bit of this, Erin, but I like listeners and viewers to really understand the why behind things. So I'll just set the table here. So as viewers and listeners know, Minnesota has one of the largest racial homeownership gaps in the country. Whites have the highest ownership rate at above 75%, and blacks have the lowest at about 25%. And why did we arrive here? We arrived here because past racist economic systems and policies had a particularly harsh impact on black Minnesotans. As was the case across the country, blacks could only live in certain areas and neighborhoods due to racist lending policies, redlining, covenants before that, and projects such as the raising of St. Paul's Rondo community in large portions of North Minneapolis to build I-94 basically erased these neighborhoods
and the homes were taken as a result of eminent domain, and the folks who had previously been homeowners were forced to become renters because they couldn't buy in other places. Since homeownership is the number one way that individuals and families in this country have built generational wealth over time, Black renter households today face a particularly difficult situation when aspiring to homeownership, given today's median price point, higher interest rates. We know at the center one of the most successful tools in overcoming the financial barriers faced when buying a home is down payment assistance. So how do you make this work? And down payment assistance, as the name implies, helps lower income households to compete in today's housing market. The funds are typically structured as a zero interest loan, and the loan or a portion of it may be forgiven over a set period of time as long as the buyer continues to live in the home as their primary residence. So now this project that we're working on, it is called the Advancing Black Homeownership Community Fund. It's a down payment assistance program. It will be specifically available to qualifying foundational Black Americans or those whose ancestry traces back to the U.S. system of slavery. The fund is structured as a special purpose credit program, which is a legal arrangement to allow the use of race as a qualifying factor in order to address disparities seen today that were caused by past racist systems. So basically, we're here today because of a reason. We're left with that impact. And so how do we change that? That's what we're talking about. So with that long-winded explanation out of the way, did I get that right, Marcus? Tell us more about the fund and tell me if I got that special purpose nuance right.
Well, I think you got that really, down pat to what it's really trying to get after. And it's like, how do you try to create pathways for individuals, families, and communities that haven't had the opportunity to take advantage of many different policies and other advantages that created wealth for different communities across our country right now. So I think you laid it out really well. I think what's really exciting about, using the special purpose credit, you can really zero in on the community you want to make a difference. And if you can make that difference, now you can look at opportunities to impact other communities, right? So it isn't just start with this community and stop with this community. It's like start here, understand what the challenges have been, remove those barriers, and then create opportunities for others around. So I really think the community fund is a great way to approach this type of work so that you can be very surgical. And the down payment assistance part is super important because this program is going to go to individuals and families that haven't had that generational wealth. They haven't had the opportunity to have multiple generations of homeowners that can pass down equity and other dollars that can then go into this individual's home and down payment. So I think it's a program that matches a very specific need.
And it's is it safe to say it's the whole idea of down payment assistance? It lets people compete in the housing market when they maybe wouldn't be able to otherwise?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about the last 4 years in particular, the housing market you laid out has changed dramatically, where you could find a affordable home. You could put a minimal down payment, whether that's through FHA or other programs that didn't require a lot of down payment. You could actually compete. But over the last 5 years now, folks have had to have significant amounts of down payment, upwards of $50,000 to $100,000 of down payment just to afford the house that they want to buy in the community they want to live in, to even find an affordable house for that matter.
So why help people with down payment assistance?
I think ultimately getting families into homes and helping them reach their aspirations is the goal. We want to close that gap that you talked about. I mean, in this region right now, we have a 50% gap for Black families to own homes. And down payment assistance is one of those key strategies to help fill that gap and start to get that wealth. If these families get into the space where they're owning homes, they're starting to build wealth for their families, for their children, for their opportunities for other family members to, get education or to buy a business or other things like that. We know that homeownership is a gateway to wealth building and to also a more prosperous community and region for us all.
Right. And can I just build, on what Marcus said? I mean, I was looking at some data recently, and this is an analysis from a couple of years ago, but it still holds, which is that if we were to close the Black-white wealth gap in this country, we would raise GDP by up to $4,300 per capita.
That's so key.
This is not just the right thing to do because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
It's something that actually benefits every single member of our community.
Right.
Absolutely.
It makes sense for everyone. This is the story that we also try to tell. It's like, if you've got folks that aspire to home ownership, can't do it because they can't get over the down payment hurdle. The fact is, if you are in that situation, you can find down payment assistance help somewhere. This particular program is specifically for foundational Black individuals. There's reasons for that. A lot of the reasons revolve around the community's ability to trust the programs
Absolutely.
after being left out for so long.
Yeah.
So it's very much about trust and making something accessible.
Yes.
That even if it's accessible in theory,
Yeah.
otherwise it isn't necessarily. And again, I want to make the point that if you're in a situation where you can't depend on generational wealth, it doesn't matter what color you are or anything else. If you qualify financially, you can qualify for some down payment assistance help. That's how the system works.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's really helpful to know. One question I had when it comes to tax dollars and down payment assistance, the first generation home buyers assistance that's out there now is tax dollar money. And the argument for that, again, is that this benefits everybody. It's going to move everybody up and have more people be able to participate in our economy. Are there tax dollars involved in the Advancing Black Homeownership thing?
Right now, the funds that we're raising right now are coming from private individuals, foundations, and corporations right now. There is opportunity for government to get involved and be a part of the coalition and contribute to this, because I think it's going to take all of us to solve the problem. It can't just be one small catalyst. It has to be a full, scale effort across many sectors for sure.
And that's what we're trying to do with this is show that this can be done and that this can make a difference. And then have it as a model for for us and for other locations.
Absolutely.
To think about expanding and making it bigger.
Yes.
So this has been a really good conversation. I have wanted more specifics on GroundBreak for a while, and I'm happy to have gotten them, and I appreciate that to both of you. I think that's going to do it for our conversation. I'll do my traditional exit. If you are interested in exploring home ownership for you or your own household, you can take a home buying class and enlist the help of a home ownership advisor for free by going to our website, hocmn.org. Our advisors and educators are embedded in organizations across the state, and they'll work with you to help get you mortgage ready, educate you on the buying process from A to Z, and walk with you through every step of the process. I want to thank my guest today, Erin Marcus. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Appreciate it. In closing, as always, I want to acknowledge our sponsors, Associated Bank, Bell Bank, Bremer Bank, Huntington Bank, Midwest One Bank, and Old National Bank. Our sincere thanks to each of these organizations for their support. Thanks, and see you next time.